The Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004 was one of the worst natural disasters in recorded history, killing at least 225,000 people across a dozen countries. Indonesia and Sri Lanka bore the brunt of the tsunami, with the giant waves wiping out entire villages within minutes. CNA Correspondent examines how survivors are rebuilding lives and strengthening resilience 20 years after the tragedy. The Baitur Rahman Grand Mosque is the symbol of religion, strength and struggle of the Acehnese people. The prominent building in Banda Aceh, the capital of Aceh province, survived the devastating earthquake and tsunami 2 decades ago. On 26 December 2004, a powerful 9-magnitude earthquake rocked the west coast of Sumatra near Aceh. The earthquake displaced an enormous volume of water, unleashing killer waves. One of the first signs of a tsunami was a sudden retreat of water from the beach. As the waves approach shallow water, they become compressed, causing them to grow in height up to 30 meters. The giant waves slammed into coastal communities, swallowing almost everything in its path. The tsunami killed an estimated 130,000 people in Aceh. The densely populated Banda Aceh was the worst hit, with some 60,000 people dead and many more missing. There were more than 14,000 bodies buried in this mass grave after the devastating earthquake and tsunami flattened Banda Aceh in 2004. It is unknown who were buried here because there was no time to identify the bodies and give them proper funeral rites. Men, women, and people of different religions were all buried together in their final resting place. Some residents believe their loved ones are here and have placed tombstones to remember them. Nahrawi was among the lucky ones to survive. The 50-year-old was out at sea that fateful day, but nothing could prepare him for what he was about to find out when he got back to shore.
Pasca tsunami, saya hidup sebatang kara, Pak. Semua keluarga saya habis. Pasca tsunami, saya ini pernah jadi relawan 3 bulan. Relawan artinya membantu orang-orang yang kena tsunami. Padahal saya korban tsunami. Tapi mungkin dengan saya bantu para korban ini, mungkin tenang jiwa raga saya itu, nggak teringat apapun.
After the tsunami, Nahrawi started a small oil and gas business and now is the successful owner of a few petrol stations in Banda Aceh. But there are survivors still struggling long after the disaster. Leah tries to make ends meet working in a local restaurant just off Banda Aceh. She was just 8 years old then during the tsunami and became an orphan overnight when both her parents were killed.
Ayah siap gempa, ayah mau ke laut, dia kan nelayan. Udah dibilang sama tetangga nggak usah, tapi dia tetap mau ke sana. Karena dia kan pencari rezeki. Terus ke sana dia. Terus nggak jumpa lagi. Susah ya beradaptasi. Pertama nggak bisa bobok kan, sering bobok sama mama kan. Harus kuat. Karena nggak mungkin kan kita kayak ini terus. Kedepannya kita harus bisalah sendiri apa-apa, Pak. Karena kok kita mengenang masa lalu kan itu nggak bangkit-bangkit, Pak.
Big corporations like PT Solusi Bangun Andalas also had to bounce back from the tsunami. The cement factory was severely damaged when struck by the monster waves. In 2007, it decided to rebuild, restart operations and contribute to the reconstruction of Aceh.
Kami berusaha dengan apa yang kita miliki, pengetahuan kami, teknologi kami, untuk bisa membantu menyediakan bahan bangunan, terutama semen. Karena kalau kita ngomong infrastruktur, itu tetap memerlukan semen. Dengan kita membangun kembali pabrik kami lebih yakin untuk bisa berkontribusi positif ke rekonstruksi Aceh secara umum.
It is Friday afternoon and businesses in Banda Aceh are closing for a few hours. Shop owners are preparing to attend Friday prayers at the nearby Baitur Rahman Grand Mosque. Aceh is known as Serambi Mecca, or the veranda of Mecca, because this is where the spread of Islam in Indonesia began. Aceh is religiously conservative and is the only province in the country that practices Sharia laws. The Islamic influence reflected in the daily lives of people here was one of the factors that has helped Aceh get back on its feet after the 2004 tsunami. Aceh province is predominantly Muslim, and the Acehnese are firm believers in destiny.
Kita hidup, kita berusaha untuk bertahan. Setelah itu apa yang terjadi itu kuasa Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Jadi dengan percaya itu sebagai takdir, itu kodrat yang harus diterima. Sehingga setelah kejadian tsunami itu orang Aceh menjadi tidak cengeng. Itu kekuatan masyarakat Kota Banda Aceh dengan ketaatannya sebagai muslim yang percaya itu ujian yang diberikan Tuhannya.
Perhaps it was also destiny when peace finally prevailed in Aceh after struggling in a decades-long armed conflict. The aftermath of the tsunami produced a peace agreement between the Free Aceh Movement, or GAM, and the Indonesian government, bringing an end to the insurgency. Afrizal was a former GAM company commander, and he was in the separatist camp in the mountains when the tsunami struck the coast of Aceh.
Turun ke bawah, saya bilang. Apapun resiko kita hadapi. Kita di sana punya musuh, tetapi kondisi seperti ini kita tidak bisa diamin juga. Tadi saya bilang sama kawan-kawan, saya lempar senjata. Kita tidak ada guna lagi berperang, karena ada yang banyak yang minta tolong di bawah. Sehingga hari pertama dengan hari kedua kami membantu para pengungsi yang ada di pengungsian masing-masing.
Banda Aceh is now thriving 20 years after the tsunami. The city and its people have risen from the ashes of destruction, but the anguish will remain, forever etched in the memories of the Acehnese. Next, CNA Correspondent looks at how the people of Aceh are preparing themselves for future disasters. Simeulue is one of many picturesque islands in Indonesia's Aceh province. Behind the natural beauty lies a tragic story. In 1907, a strong earthquake triggered a tsunami, killing hundreds of its inhabitants. Nearly 100 years later, Simeulue was hit by a more devastating disaster. The Boxing Day earthquake and tsunami in 2004 ravaged the island, but fewer than 10 people were killed. This tsunami monument greets visitors arriving in Simeulue from the nearby harbour. Residents here are proud about their tradition, and they want to tell the world what they understand about tsunamis from past experience. Locals call it smong, or giant waves, and it's this local wisdom passed down from generations that has helped save lives in Simeulue. Karina was 15 years old when the 2004 tsunami wreaked havoc and panic in a village in Simeulue.
Ketika surut air, kami mau lihat karena ada ikan-ikan tuh di depan rumah, kebetulan memang laut. Terus nenek bilang, oh, jangan ke sana, itu biasanya akan terjadi semong, katanya, mau ada ombak besar. Kemudian kami diajak naik ke belakang rumah, itu ada gunung kebetulan. Naik ke belakang, pas naik air itu memang kelihatan langsung, itu ada 3 kali naik.
Rizwan is a cultural activist in Simeulue, and he said the local wisdom on tsunamis is an effective early warning system that helped minimize the death toll on the island. He actively passes down this tradition to the younger generation through poetry and songs.
Inang maso la semona, manok no sao fano, uwilah dasesewan.
Rizwan said a more concerted effort is needed to ensure the island's local wisdom is not forgotten.
Pemerintah harus membuat sebuah kebijakan agar local wisdom ini, kearifan lokal ini menjadi muatan lokal di sekolah.
secara formal.
While few people died in Simeulue during the 2004 tsunami, other parts of Aceh were not so lucky. More than 130,000 were killed, partly because of the lack of awareness of disaster mitigation. But that was not the first time such a natural disaster has happened in Aceh. This cave, located about 60 kilometers from the city of Banda Aceh, sheds light on ancient tsunamis.
This coastal cave hides a lot of secrets about Aceh's past. Locals call it Gua Eklunti or Bat Droppings Cave. There is a significant bat colony here, and the cave has a strong, unpleasant, pungent odor. In 2011, a team of geologists and archaeologists made an intriguing discovery that there were at least 11 prehistoric tsunamis that struck the coast of Aceh some 7,400 years ago.
These bats have inhabited the cave for generations, and their droppings are an indicator of the presence of tsunami deposits. Researchers said the droppings separate one tsunami episode from another, and the 11 layers of sediments reveal the number of tsunamis that may have occurred in the past.
Ini menjadi sebuah early warning system ke depan, bahwa tsunami itu bukan hanya 2004, tapi sudah pernah terjadi sebelum-sebelumnya. Maknanya akan terjadi juga ke depan lagi. Dengan seperti itu kan akan memberikan sebuah kejelasan bagi pemerintah bagaimana cara mengantisipasi ke depan.
A tsunami early warning system is essential to anticipate future disasters. It consists of a tsunameter anchored to the bottom of the seafloor and a surface buoy. If a large wave passes over the tsunameter, it will measure a higher pressure, indicating an increase in water level. The system transmits an alert to the buoy, which then passes the information to a satellite and onto the relevant authorities. If a tsunami is coming, alerts can then be sent out to the public, prompting an evacuation. Indonesia's National Disaster Mitigation Agency, or BNPB, said there are plans to improve the offshore tsunami early warning system.
If we discuss about the offshore equipment, it should be more distributed, because if we only have limited equipment, then usually it always at the wrong place at the wrong time. We are now currently assessing not a static equipment, but how to utilize the dynamic equipment. In example, how can we utilize the GPS available at the large vessel?
Schools conduct disaster drills to better prepare in the event an alert is triggered. The school in Banda Aceh has taken the initiative to organize drills every year since 2010.
Drill tsunami ini sangat penting diberikan untuk siswa-siswi kita karena ini merupakan edukasi dan pembelajaran buat ananda kita biar mereka punya bekal untuk suatu saat jika mereka menghadapi kejadian yang seperti ini, yang realnya mereka sudah ada bekal, sudah ada ilmu, paling tidak bisa menyelamatkan diri sendiri.
At the regional level, cooperation and coordination of disaster management amongst ASEAN countries is done by the AHA Center. The center, which is based in Jakarta, said the region is now better prepared to handle a major disaster.
So 20 years on, we have moved far ahead in the regional and also collaboration with international organizations as well. Although we are one of the most disaster-prone region in the whole world, but in terms of capacity, in terms of resource mobilization, capability, and the planning and contingency plan to response to disaster, we are considered quite well developed.
The 2004 tsunami was a painful lesson for the Acehnese, but there's confidence that with greater awareness of disaster mitigation and improvements in early warning systems, they can better survive another similar tragedy in the future. Next, CNA Correspondent visits Sri Lanka to look at how the tsunami led to the worst train disasters in history. Colombo's scenic coastline stretches into the distance as far as the eye can see. The capital city of Sri Lanka is situated on the west coast and was fortunate to escape the devastation of the Boxing Day earthquake and tsunami 20 years ago. On 26 December 2004, Sri Lanka's east and south coasts were hit by a tsunami unleashed by a powerful 9-magnitude earthquake more than 1,700 kilometers away near Sumatra Island in Indonesia. It took about 2 hours for the giant waves to reach Sri Lanka, killing more than 30,000 people. The tsunami also led to the worst train disaster in history.
Trains are a popular mode of transportation in Sri Lanka, and rail journeys here are famous for the spectacular views. I'm on board the scenic Colombo-Matara track, which hugs the coastline for the majority of the ride. This is also the same route which was taken by 1,700 passengers who were killed by the tsunami 20 years ago.
The train was forced to stop in the small village of Paralia when the tracks were inundated following the first tsunami wave. Then a second and much bigger wave hit the coast and slammed onto the train. The water started to flood the packed carriages and passengers began to panic as the water level increased. Many tried to climb onto the roof above the waterline. Minutes later, the third and largest wave arrived, uprooting the carriages and drowning many passengers inside. A section of the mangled train carriage is displayed at a tsunami museum in Paralia.
This wreck is one of the 8 train carriages that was devastated by the tsunami. This Class 3 battered carriage acts as a poignant memorial to those who were killed in the disaster.
Priyanthi lives in Paralia and she saw what happened to the fateful train.
I'm look train, watch it, rolling and pulling 100 meters back to the vigil. People are confusion, cry out, help, help, help. Help not coming. Then people drown in water. Then second one train rolling and pulling inside the country.
People living in weakly constructed settlements close to the shore were the worst affected by the tsunami. Over 80,000 homes were destroyed and more than 1 million people were displaced in Sri Lanka. Rebuilding homes was one of the more urgent needs in the reconstruction process. This housing complex in Sinigama on the south coast of Sri Lanka was donated by Australia's state of Victoria. Champa is a tsunami survivor and a beneficiary of the housing project.
මේ තේනගේ හම්බ වුණා. ඒ වෙලාවේ මේ ගෙදර අපට මාලිගාවක් වගේ වටිනවා. මොකද ඇත්තටම අපි හිටියේ තැන් තැන්වල එක එක්කෙනාගේ ගෙවල් වල හිටියේ. එතකොට එහෙමත් ඉන්න වෙලාවක මේ ගේ හම්බ වුණාම ලොකු සන්තෝෂයක් ආවා. කියන්නේ ලෝකේ තියෙන ලස්සනම ගෙදර හම්බුනේ අපට වගේ හැඟීමක් තමයි ආවේ.
However, not all housing projects were successful. Hamida is the beneficiary of a housing scheme in Norosholai in Ampara district, which was one of the worst hit areas by the tsunami. 20 years have passed and the 62-year-old has yet to receive her home.
இந்த ஊட்ட நம்பி வாழ்ந்தோம். ஐயா ஊடு தார மட்டுக்கு இது வரைக்கும் இல்லை. 20 வருஷம் இன்னமும் ஐயா தார மட்டுக்கு இல்லை. நாங்கள் இந்த 20 வருஷம் பட்டிக்க கஷ்டம். குமரிகள் புள்ளிகள் கட்டு மாலிசப்பட்டு எல்லா தலையும் மாலிசப்பட்டு கஷ்டப்பட்டு தான் இன்றைக்கு பிரிக்கும்.
Earlier this year, the CNA team visited the Norocholai housing complex near a remote sugarcane plantation and had to film discreetly due to the sensitivity of the matter. There are 500 houses in the complex funded by the Saudi Arabian government to assist families displaced by the 2004 tsunami. The distribution of the houses was suspended by a court because of ethnic politics. In October, Sri Lankan authorities finally gave instructions to hand over the houses to the beneficiaries.
When you go to an area and are going to start a project, you should understand the culture, the diversity and the nature of the area. So that kind of transparency and interaction was not here. All of a sudden you start huge project in an area. And there are doubts from people because this in Sri Lanka, this post-war politics is highly polluted with this ethnocentric politics.
The non-governmental organization, the Foundation of Goodness, tries to steer clear of ethnic politics, providing equal assistance to all. The foundation helped build some 1,000 houses funded by donors after the tsunami. Kushil, who is the founder of the charity group, said the waves of destruction of the tsunami led to waves of compassion when people from home and abroad donated generously.
When someone gives unconditionally, they don't expect anything in return. But we still, go back and tell them what we did with their generosity. But on the other hand, when someone expects us to deliver something, we deliver it beyond what they expected. It's other people's money. So you've got to make sure that, your accountability is at a different level.
The Sri Lankan Disaster Management Centre, or DMC, is accountable for responding to calamities in the country. For Sri Lanka, there were many lessons learned from the 2004 tsunami because the country had never experienced such a disaster before.
Tsunami disaster surprised everyone in the nation. So at that time, we didn't have a proper organized mechanism to respond this kind of a hazardous event. The birth of DMC just after tsunami disaster, we were able to establish this, and since then up to now, whatever the multi-hazard kind of disasters, we are ready to face any kind of a hazardous event.
The Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004 was a wake-up call not only for the countries affected by the disaster, but for populations around the world too. There's no way to change the course of nature. As communities enjoy its beauty, they also need to be mindful of its fury.